Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Z. I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. Let's talk today on whether if you identify as trans, whether you really should transition. I see this kind of question all of the time in the comment section from some of you guys, where a lot of you will comment something to the extent of, I think I'm trans, but I'm so scared of starting hormones, or I think I'm trans, but I'm so afraid of surgery, or I think I'm trans and now I have to transition. So there's a lot of apprehension there's a lot of anxiety and fear, and there's a lot of confusion. What I see and what's starting to be quite evident is that people assume that just because they're trans identified, that means they must transition. So let me be very, very clear with you guys. If you identify as a transgender, whatever, and remember, transgender is a huge, huge umbrella term, right? And that's another problem with the language that we have today, is that we're using the word trans and transgender to kind of as a huge umbrella to cluster everybody underneath. And I personally think that's quite problematic, because underneath the umbrella we have people who trans-binary, trans men and trans women. We have people who are non-binary. We have people who gender queer. We have people who trans-feminine, trans-masculine, androgynous, and so on and so forth. So we have a lot of individual identities clustered, and everybody keeps using the word in term trans or transgender. And it can be a little bit confusing to what it really implies or what it means, especially because we tend to associate the word transgender with transition, meaning if you're transgender, you have to transition, which is completely untrue. Again, being trans, what it really means to me personally, at least the way I understand it, is that being trans means one way or another. You either not comfortable with your body in relationship to your biological sex, you're not comfortable with your gender expression in a relationship to the gender you were assigned at birth, you're not comfortable with a gender role. In other words, you're not comfortable with any kind of or combination of gender characteristics, either physical or expressive or even emotional, that are corresponding to the assigned perceived gender. Okay, so as a result, you can see that the trans is really kind of becomes this really huge broad umbrella term characterizing anybody and everybody underneath it, including people who are not interested in medical transition at all. But for all of you, I can see that for some of you it's very, very confusing, because people think trans equals transition. And while for many people it is true, for so many people it is not true. So let me be clear. Identifying as trans can mean a lot of things. It can mean that you're just not comfortable with a gender role and you need to experiment and explore until you find what feels right for you. It could mean you're not comfortable with gender expression or how you express yourself. It could mean that you're not comfortable with your body and you experience incongruency to such extent that you do need to go through medical transition, or maybe not. It could mean a lot of things, but in a nutshell, generally speaking, it means that there's some level of incongruency between the assigned gender you were giving at birth, okay, and what that gender connotes and communicates to the world about who you are. So if you feel like you identify as trans, it does not mean you need to transition. What it means is that you need to figure out for yourself now, what does it mean? Okay, so identifying as trans is like a first step. Okay, I know that I am, belong to this umbrella. I'm standing underneath this umbrella, but who is it who's standing underneath this umbrella? Am I somebody who's experiencing so much gender dysphoria and incongruency that I really see myself as the opposite biological sex than I was born, and therefore perhaps trans-binary, okay? Or am I somebody who is feels comfortable with my body, but I still have some gender dysphoria because of how the world sees me in terms of my expression or my clothing or even my role. So in other words, the next step is, yes, you're under this umbrella, but who is the person underneath this umbrella? And that's the key. The key is to figure out who is standing underneath it. The key is to figure out who you are in relationship to gender. And gender is super broad and super huge. And a mistake people make is that they assume, oh, I'm under umbrella. That means I gotta start hormones. That means I gotta start having surgeries. And that is not true. Starting hormones is for primarily really for individuals who is identified as trans-binary and they really feel strong incongruency with their body and they want to modify their secondary sex characteristics. Or it's also for individuals who are like somewhere in the middle of a spectrum, like more non-binary identified, who want some subtle effects of particular gender, but not all of it, okay? But it's not for everybody. For example, for somebody who just wants to bend some gender norms, and by the way, everybody under umbrella would fall into gender nonconforming because we're all nonconformities at that point. But for somebody who just wants to change up their gender expression, there's no need to really meddle with medical interventions if you feel very comfortable with your body. So the key is really to figure out where you fall. And this is why I always say, take it slow. If you're unsure, if you're uncertain, if you experience a lot of confusion, take it slow, engage in social transition. Take little steps. Each step has to feel affirming. And if it feels affirming, you know you're on the right path, and then you can start taking bigger steps. So the last thing you want to do is wake up one day, realize you're having gender dysphoria, watch a few YouTube videos, feel that, oh, that means I'm transgender, now I'm aware I'm a trans person, and then associate the word transgender with transition, especially medical and surgical transition, and jump over here. That's the last thing you want to do. And I think this is what, unfortunately, some of the younger individuals are doing, and we're hearing more and more stories of the transition. Not everybody, again, who identifies as transgender needs to transition or wants to transition. Again, figure out who is that person under umbrella. How do you feel in relationship to your gender? Is it more gender in relationship to your body and secondary sex characteristics? Is it more how the world perceives you? Is it more how you really feel on the inside? There's so many layers. Gender is so complicated. It's really, like I said before, it's like a strata of lasagna. Each layer carries a different aspect of who you are. And so it's really important to figure that out. Again, transgender is a huge umbrella, and it's just the beginning. So it's very important to figure out who's standing under that umbrella. So take your time, learn about yourself, experiment. Again, as I said in one of my videos, there's a big difference between standing under that umbrella and knowing that you identify as trans-binary and wanting to transition and wanting to do something about your gender, or even identifying as non-binary and wanting to do something about, bringing out some more other characteristics into your life, and being afraid because you're not so much fear that you are going to regret it as you fear about how others are going to take it or what might happen if you do. It's a very different fear. If you haven't watched that video, I really encourage you to see it. I'll link it below. It's a really good one. But other than that, just, you know what, ask yourself all those questions, explore. A lot of you write to me and you say that you're experiencing a lot of confusions and you're not sure and you want to find out. Again, if you're experiencing a lot of confusion, that's a sign. That's a sign that certain elements, like certain layers of your internal strata, are maybe not really merging together well. I mean, imagine it's like they're all pieces of puzzle, and if you're experiencing a lot of confusion, that means that pieces of your puzzle somehow are not clicking together. And that could be a sign. It could be telling you, a lot of different things about yourself. Usually for a lot of people, the puzzle starts to solidify as they start doing little affirming steps. And here for people are stepping more into the transition path as a result of that. So do some internal exploring. There's nothing wrong with it. This is another thing, right? In today's society, in today's culture, we want everything quick. We're so hungry for like a quick fix and just, get on with it quicker. And unfortunately, transition is a process. Not even transition. Figuring out who you are under that umbrella is a process, and that's okay. And be mindful of yourself and mindful of who you are, and take your time. Take whatever you need. So if you're watching this, comment below. Let me know what are your thoughts. whether you have kind of made that mistake of jumping into things or thought about jumping into things. How did you take time to figure out for yourself who was standing underneath that umbrella? What is your view on the terminology? Do you feel like the terminology, the word transgender is being used too broad? Comment below and share. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys all next time. Bye.